This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
We are back with Julie A. Schejbal, our estate attorney at the law offices of Julie A. Schejbal, based out of Dunkirk, Maryland. She joins us again today to talk more about her full service estate planning law firm, and she's helping so many clients all over. And I know today we're going to kind of hone on in with crisis planning, but there's still so much more about her. So let me have her introduce herself and welcome back today. How are you?
I'm great, Jill. How about yourself?
Good to see you. Can you hear me?
It's good to be seen. It's good to see you as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
Well,
welcome.
oh my goodness. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I'm a full service. I do full service estate planning for clients, and so what that entails is doing wills, trust, power of attorney, medical directive, a lot of end of life planning. It also can include some probate work or work after people die, making sure that they're moving through the process to get their will or their trust administered correctly. And then the final part, and kind of what we're going to touch on a little bit today, is sort of crisis or elder law planning, which is more kind of what happens if we need to, mom or dad needs to go into a nursing home, and covering sort of those aspects of it.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And you're here helping so many. We've talked about trust, we talked about wills, we've talked about so many things that you're helping your clients with. And just so people are aware, what states do you work in?
I'm admitted in Maryland, so I practice in Maryland, but I practice all over the state of Maryland, and I can practice in any county in Maryland. So basically everywhere. And my office is located in Dunkirk, and but it's like a suburb of the DC metro area. So do a lot of work around the DC metro area.
All right. Well, excited for today. I can't believe this is our podcast number 8. We've been here
It's
rolling
lovely.
and for the past 2 months. Let's talk a little bit about crisis planning. I know that's our topic of today. Let's just start off by the basics. What exactly is crisis planning?
So it's sort of, you think about it, a lot of it is the kind of what you would think traditionally of a crisis. We're faced with an emergency, and how do we deal with it, right? And so here it's in the estate planning realm, it's, oh my gosh, I've hit this place. My loved one is maybe very sick, and they haven't done anything. And now what can we do to, assist them through this? How can I help my mom or my dad or my spouse or my brother or sister? And I think this sort of the topic for today kind of reared its head when, basically I have this last 10 days, I've had a couple people that were in these crisis situations where they didn't have things in place, and they waited very much till the last minute. One of them unfortunately passed away before we could put anything in place. And the other one is, in the hospital, very, very sick. And, we haven't been able to put anything in place because of his physical condition. And, it's, we need to get him to execute these documents, and we can't. So it's sort of that people failed to plan. And, what do they say? Failing to plan is planning to fail, I think. So it's kind of, that's part of it. That's sort of what people think of as a crisis. But the other part is, and so I think one of the things you can do when you're faced with this, either you were faced with it or your loved one is you get this critical diagnosis. Let's not wait. Get your, move forward. Make sure that your powers of attorney and medical directives and wills are in place. Don't wait till the 11th hour, because sometimes the 11th hour really becomes midnight before you get there. And so that's, lesson 1 of this is don't wait for the worst to happen.
Well, a lot of people do wait. And, what happens in the event that you wait?
So if you wait too long, you are, kind of putting your fate, you're you're leaving it up to the vagaries of fate or the law. And so, like in the case of the client who is in the hospital and very sick, in some ways he's fortunate because his significant other is able to, she was able to, he had enough cognitive ability to kind of indicate to the doctors she should be handling my medical decisions. So he's able to at least move through that. They've made some representations so medical decisions can be made. If, like with his finances, we haven't been able to put a power of attorney in. So right now, if somebody needed to pay bills, I don't believe they could. So you're kind of, as the loved one, the healthy loved one, you're kind of in this crisis mode. And then if you don't do anything and somebody isn't able ever to put these in place, we've got to go through a guardianship, which is incredibly arduous. You have to go in front of the court, and it can take a very long time. So you're sort of stuck in limbo for a very long time while we are waiting for all of this to play out.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you for that. And
Sure.
also, oh, go ahead, continue.
Oh, well, I was going to say then the other type of crisis planning is maybe not less crisis like it's not driven immediately, but it's meeting somebody's long-term healthcare needs, right? Somebody goes into, we're diagnosed with dementia or something like that, and you're looking at paying for long-term care in a nursing home or an assisted living facility. How are you going to handle that part of it?
Got it. Well, let's talk about some of the steps to avoid the crisis. And of course, let's break it down. In addition to failing to plan, is there any other, plan? Is these other crisis planning happening? Could you explain this a little bit?
So sure, when we're talking about long-term care, we're talking about paying for somebody's essentially nursing home care. And one of the first questions I get from clients is, and I don't blame them, because it's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. And I
Yeah.
always think, and everybody, it's very difficult to keep them apart. And I think, well, geez, you could have given these programs two different titles, like like black and white, right? So we can tell them apart. They're so close that it gets muddled in a lot of people's minds. So what Medicare is that's federal health insurance, generally for people who are over 65. Once you become over 65, or at least
Yeah.
right now, that becomes your primary health insurance. It covers your hospital, it can cover medical insurance like doctor's visits and drugs. And sometimes it's combined with secondary insurance like Blue Cross Blue Shield or something like that. And then, so that pays for your health care when you're older. But what Medicare does not generally pay for is nursing home care. If
Yeah.
you need to go in a nursing home, Medicare will not pay for it. The exception is if you have to go into a nursing home for rehab. You fall, you break your hip, you have knee replaced, something like that, and you need to go in for rehab. Medicare will pay, I believe it's 60 to 90 days, but the key there is you have to be progressing. So if you don't progress through this, or you're older and stubborn, you're not doing your rehab, then they're going to Medicare is going to stop paying. They're going to kick you out, or if you can't go home, you're going to have to look at some other way to pay for your long-term care stay.
Got it. All right. Well, also, did you want to discuss a little bit about something we always get confused with, Medicare, Medicaid? Are you ready for that? Or
Yeah, we can talk. So now we can talk about Medicaid. So what Medicaid does is it pays for your long-term care. So if you're going into a nursing home, that's what pays for the nursing home stay or other facilities. So it's where you are, it's generally for people who, at least what we're going to talk about today, we're going to focus on older individuals who, need long-term care because they have dementia or some other type of illness that is creating that they can no longer take care of themselves.
got it.
So one of the things about Medicaid is, and this is kind of getting into the boring weeds, but it can be, I think it's important for this discussion, is that Medicare is sort of federally administered. Medicaid is a joint federal and state program. So what is important for everybody to know here is I'm going to talk about it today from a Maryland perspective, but it could change from state to state. So if you're looking at, applying for Medicaid in New York or Washington State or someplace else, and you say, well, I heard this woman on a podcast say this, and your attorney may look at you and go, well, dummy, she was talking about Maryland or whatever. So just keep that in mind. And the funds come from the federal government, but they're administered again, like at the state level. So there are, variances. Like I can tell this story. One time I was helping a woman put her husband on Medicaid, and we'd said, okay, well, we're going to do this particular step. And her financial advisor, I talked to him briefly. He goes, oh, you can't do that. He was
Yeah.
so adamant that I couldn't do it. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure I can because I just helped somebody else get on Medicaid and we did the exact same technique. I was like, no, you can't do this. And I looked, and he was her financial advisor for whatever reason was from New Jersey, and so I was like, all right, let me just look this up. He was saying stuff. You know how, Jill, probably you've seen people who say stuff with enough conviction
Yeah.
that they could make you believe that the background behind you, the sky is not blue but purple, right?
Yeah.
That's how he was saying it. And I'm like, So then I looked back and I researched a little bit, and the technique that I was offering was totally solid in Maryland, but New Jersey did not follow it or wouldn't take it. And so I was like, well, dude, really? It's valid in Maryland just because it's not valid in your state. And so that's like an example of where there may be differences between the states.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Got it. It's funny because I always get a little confused though with Medicare, with Medicaid,
Yeah.
and what does each one, pay for? What don't they? And yeah, is it ever going away? Like, is this one of those state funded things, or everyone's worried about Social Security, but what about that?
Well, and that could be okay. So this whole conversation could become a moot point based on the budget bill that's in front of Congress. I'm not really sure exactly what's going to play out, but that's another thing to keep in mind is, there's the whole bill that may pass this weekend could create differences. And if it creates differences like in federal funding, then some of the things that the states may allow or not allow may change too. So I think people need to keep abreast of that, or at least if not abreast of it, because people are saying, well, I don't want to follow the federal legislation. I get that, but if you have a parent or a spouse who is heading down this path, you may want to go see an elder lawyer in your state or locality, because things might be changing quickly, and there may be an opportunity for, if it's going to change differently, it may be an opportunity for you to get in under the current law and not wait for whatever's going to happen. So I think it does, some of this may be rendered immaterial, but on the other hand, it should provide some impetus for people to at least start investigating this.
Got it. Now, let me ask you what happens. It's so sad. I hear this time and time again
Yep.
about people having to, put their loved one in a nursing home, but it's like, can we even afford this? How expensive are nursing homes really? Could you break this down for us?
Sure. They're really expensive. I know in Maryland, I was talking to a client yesterday. Her daughter had been in a nursing home, and I think she died a year and a half ago, and it was $15,000 a month.
Wow.
So,
A
and
month?
yep,
I can't even fathom this. A month.
yeah. So that's what, 120, like 180K, 180,000 a year, and that's in Maryland. And it's not one of I would say the county was not one of the, it would be one of the more expensive ones, but not the most expensive. So I can't even imagine what a nursing home is in New York City, for example.
I
No
can't
offense
even
to New
think
York.
about it. No, I can't.
Um, and so it can be costly. And so that's why you really want to look at, are there ways to, particularly if you're married, protect your assets? Because the other thing about Medicaid is that it's means tested. So Medicare, to go back to that, you're over 65, you can get on the health insurance.
Got
Under
it.
Medicaid, you've got to be both broke and medically needy. So what I define broke as, I'm flippantly using the word broke, but it's basically you have to start to qualify, you can't have more than $2,500 of assets in your pocket.
Got it.
And then the other thing is you must be medically needy. So medically needy is requiring assistance with the 5 activities of daily living, which are feeding yourself, toileting, showering, dressing, and transferring. Transferring is like getting in and out of bed or getting out of a chair or whatever. And so doctor makes that certification. But for most people, if they're in the throes of dementia, they are that is not a big hurdle for them. It's the money part is, it's out there and it's real. And what I still say is well, to get under 2,500 to become broke, my niece and nephew who are 19 could get you on Medicaid. and not because they're brilliant, but because they would just say, if you just pay the nursing home $15,000, $20,000 a month, eventually you will run out of money and you will become eligible for Medicaid, right?
Got it.
I wouldn't suggest that that's the best way to do it.
No, I was going to say, yeah, yeah. Okay. Now, but what happens if someone's really there
Mhm.
and, they run out of money? How does this work?
So what happens if you run out of money? You apply for Medicaid, and Medicaid becomes the starts paying for your care. What they do in Maryland is a what Maryland will do is they'll say, okay, your income, your Social Security, maybe you have a pension,
Mm-hmm.
is $3,000 a month. Maryland, you get to keep, as of July 1st, $106 of that income, and that's for your Reese's, what I call the Reese's peanut butter allowance, Jill. So it's to cover things that Medicaid doesn't cover: haircuts, clothing, Reese's peanut butter cups, or whatever your favorite treat is, right? And then they and then whatever else is left, they will apply toward the cost of your care. So if this person was making $3,000 in Social Security and pension, keep the 106, roughly 2,900 is applied toward your care in the nursing home, and then the federal government or Medicaid would pay the remainder. So the other 12,000 or whatever the number works out to be. So that's what kicks in. Um, and, so it does provide this safeguard. So they're not kicking your parent or your grandparent out of the nursing home. But it's really how the challenge is not that part. The challenge is how to get broke without in a manner that is, I don't want to say efficient, but is financial, I guess, financially better for everybody. I don't know if even that's the way to put it, but um, or get you reduce the financial burden, I guess. So one of the things is tip for everybody, at least in Maryland. The first thing is I tell people if they come in and they say, "Look, mom and dad or has dementia or whatever. My wife has dementia. My husband has dementia. Go pay the funeral. Go prepay your funeral costs. Go to the
Yeah.
closest funeral home. Why do you want to do that? Well, here's why you want to do it: is it's the last expense we all have on earth. We all may have different, more expensive funerals or not, but we all are going to have that expense. And if you're the children, particularly, you don't want mom or dad to die, have less than $2,500 in their pocket. And you're going, how are we burying or cremating
Ah,
or
that's
whatever?
crazy. This is
Because,
insane to think about the cost and the expense. My gosh, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, you're
Ah,
good. So that's at least one thing that it lifts a burden off of people, right? Prepaying the funeral is very helpful. And then the other thing you can do is start spending down, at least in Maryland, particularly one of the things they will do is if mom or, one parent is sick, he or she goes in a nursing home. The other parent is staying home. They've lived in this house. They want to stay there. It's their home. Um, but you can look at the idea of spend down. So part of spend down is, besides the funeral home, is looking at things like, okay, if mom or dad, if my healthy parent or healthy spouse stays in the house, what can we do to make sure that things are better for them? So maybe you look at buying a washer dryer, buying a new refrigerator, a new car. And, you can say, well, like some people come in and say, well, my washer dryer is like 5 years old. The last one I had lasted 15. Why should I do this? And what I would say to them is, well, sir or ma'am, I understand that. I'm
yeah.
cheap too. I beat my appliances to death as well. But what happens if your husband or wife's in the nursing home? Your funds are going to be restricted. You
Oh,
may not be able to pay for the washer or dryer and when the time comes. So, sort of looking at some of these things that can relieve a financial burden in the future.
so people are planning, as far as Medicaid planning, right? Could you
Yeah,
share a little bit
exactly.
of what the spend down is?
So yeah, so the spend down is basically getting under $2,500. So when you're doing that, again, to go back to my niece and nephew, they could tell you, Jill, just pay the nursing home, and you'd be spending down legitimately, and you'd get under $2,500, depending on the size of mom or dad's assets, relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with that, particularly if you're married, is you're
Yeah.
spending all the money to care for your spouse. and you may want to stay in the house. You may not, your lifestyle may be curtailed no matter what we do, but you would still want to be like, okay, I want to be able to stay in the house, I want to keep the heat on, want to be able to eat, things like that. So it's looking at things that we can do to get you under the 2,500 for the spouse in a financially beneficial manner, I guess, or reasonable manner. I'm not sure if that's even the tightest way to put it, but so, one of the things is, again, we're going to spend down some stuff. The other thing is some happy news, if you want some happy news today.
Yes. I want happy news. I want to hear. I want to hear. What are people doing? Like what so
Well, one
how
of
do
the happy thoughts is that, particularly with spouses, there are, and I'm not going to go into everything because it's too long and boring for the whole podcast, but the spouse is the favorite of the law. So there are things that exist under the current Medicaid rules that would allow you to shift some money to the healthy spouse, shift assets to him or her,
Mhm.
and so to relieve potentially the financial burden that they may face. And the other thing is, like, when we're talking about getting under the 2,500, there are certain assets that are exempt. House is number one with certain equity limits. So
Mhm.
dad goes in a nursing home, mom doesn't have to think, oh my God, they're going to take my house.
Yep.
So I think that's positive because, you don't want that uncertainty burden on top of my husband being in the nursing home, right? The other thing that can be happy or not happy is Medicaid in Maryland follows the name on the check for income. So if you are the spouse living at home and you have the larger pension, right? The larger pension, larger Social Security, you get to keep all of that income. They're just going to apply all the income that your spouse makes to the nursing home. So that can be, depending on who ends up in the nursing home, that can provide some amount of relief to the healthy spouse. Um, the other thing to think about is, again, with exceptions, there are exceptions that we can shift income or money to the healthy spouse. The other thing would be is if you have, disabled children, there are right now benefits in the law where we can shift stuff for the benefit of your disabled child, because again, that's something you don't want to think about too, is I'm in a nursing home. I can no longer, I've been providing the care and the housing for Tom. How can I protect him or her going forward? So there are ways to protect the spouse the spouse or the disabled children. So, but the idea with it is, the planning, you want to make sure you start planning when you, not now, but when you get the diagnosis, at least start down this path of what are we going to do? Because we don't want to be faced with putting mom or dad in a nursing home and, the spouse going, I don't know what to do. And then they go in and they continue to pay for the nursing home for 5, 6 a year, 7 months, a year. And they come to me and then I'm like, well, okay, we can do this. We're certainly going to put this in play, but I'm thinking, yeah, if we put this in place 7 months ago, you'd be in a lot better position.
Totally, right? Oh.
You know,
Well, it's all about preparation and planning. You have taught
yeah,
me so much and are teaching so many of our listeners and viewers here about this process. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I
right.
hope we got everything in for today.
We
How can
did.
we reach out to you?
So I can be reached at my email, which is Julie at jasestatelaw.com, or by phone at 410-286-8100, or then go to my website, which is www.jasestatelaw.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
having you here. Have a fantastic day. Have a great fourth weekend, and we'll talk soon. All right.
You do the same. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Take
much.
care.
Bye, Julie.
Thanks.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.